What is up, and welcome back to Lights Out, a haunting in Honolulu. My God, there's a lot of haunted history there.
Limitless. So as the legend of Hawaii goes, there was once a mythical fisherman and a navigator. His name was Hawaii Loa.
But many of Honolulu's haunted stories tie back to the island's history. Some of these spirits that have been around for centuries are known as the Night Marchers, and it looked like a line of fire ants marching down the mountain by Dillingham Airfield. Kalihi Palama. It was built up as an industrial working class neighborhood, and it stands as one of the most haunted regions in the city. It kind of reminds me of La Llorona.
Even today, many of the training staff report hearing someone door checking their offices, much like a security guard would. But when they go to see who it is,
no one was there. Light out, everybody.
What is up, and welcome back to Lights Out. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm joined by my co-host, Austin.
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, dude, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm living. You know, it's a week of Thanksgiving. As you're seeing this, it's Black Friday.
Yeah.
Which, always a good time on Black Friday.
Time to, empty
Camp
my bank
out.
account. Yeah.
Camp out at Walmart.
Yeah.
And try to get that TV.
Storm in. Yeah.
Storm in. God, I used to work retail at Best Buy.
That's right.
And Black Friday was
Nightmare.
madness. Like literally mobbed in there.
Only Americans too. It's like the people just smashing.
People pushing
through.
each other.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to like run to go get that like $300 TV that is usually $350.
Yeah. It was marked up anyways, so it's like barely marked down. You're not even really getting that much of a deal.
Which, if you're one of those people that goes out on Black Friday, like props to you. I can't do it anymore. It's just too hectic.
I did Micro Center one year.
Oh, I bet that's nuts.
That was out of control. A lot of smells, a lot of sights.
Yeah, a lot of smells. But anyways, I'm joined by also our producer, Danny. What's up, man?
What's up, guys?
We got a great episode for you today. We're kind of getting back to the roots of what makes Lights Out such an amazing place to hang out and talk all paranormal today,
Yeah.
which is a bit different for us as of late, as we've been covering a lot of different true crime cases, but I'm excited to get into a haunting in Honolulu. I mean, my God, there's a lot of haunted history there.
So much. Limitless.
Limitless, yeah.
I
Like
had
we
to
can't even cover all
I had to
of it.
boil it down. We're covering a city.
A
it's not
city
even
within
Hawaii. Yeah.
Hawaii.
I couldn't even cover the hauntings in one city. So there's so much out there. It's crazy.
And one of the reasons that Honolulu caught my eyes, I mean, I love Hawaii. I love Honolulu. I mean, I love the people, love the culture. But I ran across the Honolulu Police Department's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And my God, they are really into the paranormal.
They are. I know they haven't posted in years, but that channel is awesome. I wish they kept it up. I think there's like 11 videos or something out there, but it's great. We'll be diving into that a little bit towards the end of the episode.
But we got a lot of different places with a lot of haunting going on here in Honolulu. But before we get into all of that, I do have a few quick announcements, so just bear with me. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as I can. But there are a couple things I wanted to announce. First off, I'm wearing it right here. You might be like, what's Josh wearing? Well, I am wearing the new Lights Out hoodie that just dropped on lightsoutcast.shop. And I am so happy with this hoodie. We've been working on it for a little while. This is a heavyweight premium hoodie. It's very good quality. It'll keep you warm as the weather gets colder and colder. I mean, I'm toasty warm, and I'm not wearing anything under this other than the hoodie.
It's just naked under there.
No pants. No, I'm just kidding. But this thing is awesome. We did puffed print, which I didn't even know was a thing. And so the Lights Out logo here on the front is like puffed up, and I've already put it through the wash and it held up just fine.
Same, yeah.
Really nice. Feels real nice to touch, if you just like to rub your chest from time to time. And then on the back, and I'm not going to stand up, but on the back we have basically like the take on the cover art for Lights Out, which is really cool. So it's a whole print down the back. Really, really nice hoodie. That is now on sale for you guys at lightsoutcast.shop. definitely pick one up if you want one, because there's definitely limited quantities. And again, I don't know if we'll be able to restock this one, because my God, is merch hard to do these days with just the way the world is and supply chain issues. I mean, it's hard to crank out new merch items. So if you want it, go get it while you can. But moving on, I wanted to also quickly mention a very cool project we've been hard at work here at Mile High Media on. It is the new true crime documentary on a very, very interesting case, and a case that desperately needs justice. But this documentary is going to be dropping before the end of the year on my wife's YouTube channel, Kendall Ray. And we want to just show you the teaser trailer here real quick so you can get as excited as we are for it. Let's go ahead and roll it. Oh, every time I watch that, it just gives me chills.
That's awesome. I'm excited for it. I really don't know the case at all, so I'm kind of an outsider here, but yeah,
it's gonna blow people's minds, just because, I mean, the corruption in this city and the lack of support from police is just out of this world. I mean, it's truly crazy how little has been done in this murder case. It's, we're hoping the goal of this documentary is to hopefully, obviously, raise awareness, but hopefully put the pressure on the police to actually investigate it. I mean, it's truly baffling how really most of the South is like the Wild West when it comes to crime. That's the way it feels, at least.
But that's a great goal for a documentary, is to actually see something come of it.
Yeah, change, I mean, that's the goal with it. I mean, we immersed ourselves with the victim's family when doing this, and we'll have some more trailers coming with a little bit more, information. Obviously, that's just a teaser here in the next couple of weeks. That was done with some of our other members here at Mile High Media. Shout out James and Tom, and then obviously Janelle and Kendall and myself. And it was a really, really cool experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you. But yeah, that's what we got going on here at Mile High Media, because we're not just lazy podcasters over here. All right, we do more than that. Okay,
I'm a lazy podcaster.
I mean, we already knew that, but we do a lot of cool stuff here and some different projects, and we've been talking about potentially even doing a little lights out short film for next year potentially. And
I'm so down.
Which I know many of you have like, Josh, come on, man, we want to see it, or a little paranormal investigation, or just let's drop Austin in the woods somewhere and see with the GoPro and see what happens.
Naked and afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you guys want to see. But really cool. Excited to bring more of that to you here in the next couple of weeks. One more thing before we jump into haunting in Honolulu, I did want to mention that through the end of the year, my company is matching dollar for dollar every donation made to Kendall Ray's NECMEC campaign. We also have NECMEC hoodies and t-shirts and stuff like that available over at kendallray.shop. But everybody here works on NECMEC cases, and we work very closely with them. I was just out there in Washington, D.C. with Kendall for their annual gala. So it's something that we take very seriously, and we're very motivated in helping such a great organization and all the things that they do, not just bring missing kids home, but child exploitation online. I mean, all sorts of different things. And we'll be getting into more of that in the new year, and starting some campaigns here on Lights Out as well with NECMEC, which will be very exciting. But I just wanted to put that out there for any of you that are interested in donating or copying some NECMEC merch. We are matching all of those donations dollar for dollar. Okay, well, with that out of the way, let us dive into a haunting in Honolulu. And I think to start, it's always good, especially with the haunting episodes, to really kind of give a brief history on the locations, because I think it's very obvious once you dive into the history a little bit.
Exactly. Everything kind of unfolds naturally if you look into the history of a place. A lot of the time, sometimes not, but in this case, especially. So everyone get your spiral notebooks out.
Danny, cue the Hawaiian Polynesian music, please.
Yeah.
I love me some classic Hawaiian music. It's just so relaxing.
That'd be great, actually.
Little seaside wave action going on, you know? And then it turns abruptly dark.
To violence and death. But yeah, get your notebooks out, get your number 2 pencils. There's going to be a pop quiz at the end. Danny. So as the legend of Hawaii goes, there was once a mythical fisherman and a navigator. His name was Hawaii Loa, and he became famous for his long and dangerous fishing expeditions. He and his crew once followed an eastern star until they stumbled upon a large island during one of these great expeditions. The land was fertile and filled with coconut trees, and his men named the island in his honor. Hawaii Loa then returned to his homeland to bring his family to settle on the islands of Hawaii. He brought along his wife and children, his eldest son Maui, his younger son Kauai, and his daughter Oahu. It's believed that his descendants and the other travelers that came with him went on to populate the islands of Hawaii. But aside from mythology, of course, the earliest archaeological evidence of the original Polynesian explorers date back to somewhere between 300 and 700 CE, and they first inhabited the island between 1000 and 1200 CE. Centuries later, in 1778, Captain James Cook, a British explorer, stumbled upon Kauai. After sailing the islands, Captain Cook renamed them the Sandwich Islands, and thank God they're not called that anymore.
Yeah, what a terrible name. So stupid.
But here's a little lore for you. He named them in honor of his sponsor, John Montague, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, which our listeners might remember him as a member of the...
sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a member of the Hellfire Club.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
We love their outreach.
Yes.
The Hellfire Club.
And
really helping the world.
Yeah, exactly. Supposedly, as the legend has it, he was the first one to discover the sandwich. We don't know how true that lore is, but that's the story told. After James Cook's arrival, many battles broke out in the late 1700s, obviously between the natives and these new Europeans that think they can just take the place. And John was later killed during a battle. The islands, after a time, were then controlled by one Hawaiian ruler, and his name was King Kamehameha the Great, which I always think of Dragon Ball Z, Kamehameha. Nope. Lost you.
Lost me, man. Dragon Ball Z is a little out there for me, but
I grew up watching it.
Okay.
But anyways, so this unfortunate power struggle between the Hawaiians and the Europeans went on for decades. Protestant missionaries started coming over. They started converting much of the island's population over the next century. And it wasn't long after that they started discovering that these islands were rich in resources, and this attracted many European visitors and, of course, entrepreneurs. Around this time, it's believed that the population of native Hawaiians is somewhere roughly between 250,000 and 800,000. So quite a lot of people were already here. And unfortunately, nearly 1 in 17 native Hawaiians died from diseases that were introduced by the colonizers because they had no resistance to influenza, smallpox, measles, or the whooping cough. So these diseases, along with the bloodshed from the ongoing battles, killed more than half the native Hawaiian population. After the Constitution of the Kingdom of Hawaii was signed in 1887, the King of Hawaii was stripped of all control. And as years passed, strict voting laws, which tale as old as time, of course, they're favoring the rich Europeans, especially the landowners.
Yeah, nothing's changed there.
Yeah, honestly. And the Euro-Americans staged a coup against the native kingdom. The United States then overthrew the local government and its queen in 1893. It wasn't until almost a century later, finally in 1993, President Bill Clinton signed a resolution bill officially apologizing for overthrowing that government, and he claimed it was illegal. Now, it's just an apology. Yeah, nothing came of it. It was
like,
just
sorry.
Yeah, that's basically it was just an apology. That's all it was, and nothing really came of it, but it was just a gesture. After this overthrow, which was in 1893, Hawaii became a U.S. territory, and in 1898, it was heavily exploited for its resources. Foreign landowners brought in cheap laborers from several other countries, and this included China, Japan, Korea, Puerto Rico, Portugal, and the Philippines. And today, these people's offsprings contributed to the multicultural population of Hawaii, which is kind of cool. At the time, though, these laborers, they weren't even paid in U.S. currency most of the time. They were given these scripts that were basically like coupons. These coupons, if you worked on a plantation, you could only redeem these things at a plantation store where you could buy basic goods.
So basically food stamps.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like their version of it.
Very restricted food stamps, yep. And of course, all you could buy was what the plantation store stocked. So it was very limited.
Still exploitation at its finest.
Yep. Management, this should tell you everything. Management assigned the laborers numbers. They didn't even use their real names. So very dehumanizing here.
Yeah. Very sad. And if we fast forward several decades, of course, we have December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And it took almost another 2 decades before Hawaii finally became a state in 1959. Meanwhile, Hawaii's largest city and capital, Honolulu, had been growing for centuries on the southeastern shores of Oahu. Through early Polynesian settlement, war, colonization, and statehood, Honolulu somehow survived it all. It's a metro area now, it has a population of over 1 million people, and it's visited by 7.6 million people a year. It's very, very crowded. With all its history and with all the countless souls who have visited the island over the past 2,000 years, the city and the surrounding areas have become prime locations for many paranormal hauntings. So that leads us to our first haunting. After the overthrow of the local government in the late 1800s and the invasion of more colonizers, the Oahu Sugar Company built a sugar mill in Waipahu, about 20 miles northwest of Honolulu city center. This was a time when the island's exploitation was really at an all-time high. Management of the mill imported cheap laborers and gave them housing on the plantation. And as you can imagine, the pay was absolutely terrible and the work was very, very intense. The workers were originally segregated by language and culture, but they came together when resources like food and water became scarce. In 1973, the county of Honolulu set up a 4-acre park across from the mill. It's now a history museum called Plantation Village. Here, there are 25 replicas of community buildings and plantation houses that once stood on the plantation grounds in the early 1900s. Many people who visit here have reported immediately getting an eerie feeling, and it's believed that most of the village buildings are in fact haunted. The small houses, community areas, plantation stores, barbershops, and sumo ring have all experienced paranormal activity. Today, during the Halloween season, they convert the museum into a haunted attraction with actors. But even the actors who are paid to scare the guests get scared themselves. In a span of about 10 years, 40 people have abruptly quit working at this haunted attraction. And many say it's because the area is truly haunted, and some of the workers have been attacked by unseen forces. Many believe they are tied to the history of the plantation. One legend that dates back to the early 1900s tells the story of a plantation worker and his daughter. According to the story, he woke up one day to find that his wife had abandoned him in the middle of the night, and he now had to cover the cost of their rent or risk getting evicted. And he also now had to raise a 5-year-old daughter on his own. Up until now, they had kept her a secret from the managers, hoping they wouldn't take her or put her to work. The problem was the man had nothing in common with his daughter. She was interested in making dresses for her dolls or making crowns out of palm fronds, and he had no idea how to interact with his daughter. The bigger problem was that his daughter looked exactly like his wife, and every time he looked at her, he was reminded of how his wife had abandoned them. After a long day of work, the man had no interest in sewing doll clothing or making fake crowns, and he never made time for her, which is just sad. Instead, he would tie her to a chair during the day while he was out in the fields in order to keep her a secret. He'd leave her some fruit to eat and dolls to play with. While he was out in the fields, he'd act like he was a single man with no children, the worst kind of dad. He also started working longer hours and planting seeds in the fields so he didn't have to be home with her. But one day he noticed gray puffs of smoke in the sky. They soon became black and someone shouted, "Fire!" A group of workers fetched pails of water and ran towards the fire, and each plantation house was obviously built very close to one another. If one was on fire, then the rest were at serious risk for catching fire too. But the man refused to help out. He knew his daughter was still trapped inside his home, but instead of going to save her, he just watched the fire spread. Since the managers didn't know he had a daughter and he figured he could let her die in the fire and start his life over as a single man, He's like, let's just leave her. And to not look suspicious, he eventually grabbed a pail of water and slowly approached the line of houses and poured a little water out. And I'm just seeing this playing out in my head. This guy with a pail of water just barely dumping a few drops out.
Total scumbag.
What on earth? But that's when he heard the screams of his daughter. He ran across the row of houses towards his own. None of the others seemed to hear the screaming, as they were too busy trying to contain the flames. He looked through the blazing doorway of his home and saw his daughter still tied to the chair, but the ropes that he had tied her with looked like they had somehow burned away. Her skin gave off a bright glow as the flames surrounded her, and when she screamed, it sounded like it wasn't coming from her mouth. The screaming surrounded the man from all sides. As he stepped away from his home, the other workers kept trying to douse the flames. He feared that they would see his daughter inside his home. Through the door, she kept her eyes on him, even when the entire house was engulfed in flames. This is just a haunting image to think about. When the fire was finally extinguished and the home had mostly collapsed, a woman approached his house. He feared she would see his daughter inside. But before he could stop her, the woman entered the home and began crying at what she saw. As she stepped out of the house, she held a child's body in her arms. The young girl's skin was bubbling. In some spots, they could see her bone. She was covered in third-degree burns, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. When his daughter was inside the house, she looked completely unaffected by the fire, but now she was clearly dead. And he began to weep. After grieving for a moment, he looked up again and looked into his house. And sitting in the chair was his daughter, smiling at him. He looked down at the remains in front of him and noticed the braid in the child's hair. He had braided his daughter's hair that morning. There was no doubt that he was holding his dead daughter, but he could still see her figure inside the burned-down house. As he began weeping more, 2 villagers bent down next to him and asked him to hand the remains over so they could bury her. And then they carried her away. After a moment, when he was all alone, he felt someone's hand on the back of his neck. As he turned his head, he saw his daughter perfectly preserved with a bright glow around her. Puffs of smoke came from her mouth as she spoke. She said, "I'll stay by your side forever. We could have had so much fun together." Today, one of the most common paranormal sightings at the Plantation village is the ghost of this young girl. She's often seen near or inside the replica Portuguese house. The executive director of the village, Jeffrey Higa, didn't believe in ghosts before he started working at the museum. But after only a few months, he changed his mind after witnessing the ghosts on the plantation, including that young girl. In the early 2010s, one of the guides felt her hair and shoulders being touched by an invisible force inside the house. Jeffrey found the guide crying and shaking. She was saying, "I don't want her near me. I don't want her touching me. I don't want her bothering me." And the guide vowed to never go in the house again. The hauntings eventually got so bad that Jeffrey called a local minister, Reverend Kahu Silva, to investigate what was going on. He said he sensed a heavy spirit inside of the Portuguese house. He blessed the property by placing holy water in all the doors and windows. He then purified the home using Hawaiian salt and tea leaf. The Reverend came to the conclusion that the ghostly girl was a good spirit. It's believed she has never been malicious to people she comes across. She only desperately wants to find a mother figure and play with her toys. After the blessing and cleansing, the spirit disappeared for a few years, but eventually, she returned. Luckily, she hasn't caused any harm, but other entities in the Plantation Museum aren't as friendly. Jeffrey started bringing his border collie to work with him if he'd ever have to go there alone. His dog never barked, but at the museum grounds, his dog would bark when it seemed like nothing was there, and Jeffrey knew to take it as a warning. Another famous entity is known to haunt a different replica house in the village. Visitors have seen a handmade Japanese doll outside of its case, usually on the center of the main floor. When guests look away from the doll and back again, it has moved across the room. And when guides return the doll to its case, they come back a few hours later, only to find it outside in a new location. Another worker claimed they had been grabbed and choked by a ghost after leaving the replica Okinawa house. And as a safety precaution, the visitors, guides, maintenance workers, and haunted house actors are no longer allowed to enter the houses alone. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
What a horrible and tragic story.
I know. Imagine you're just like a teenager looking for a seasonal gig and you get traumatized like that.
I can't get over the dad leaving his daughter in the house to burn alive.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's just...
I know. The
so
seething
fucked.
anger towards that guy I would have.
How bad of a human being do you have to be to do that? Or to tie your daughter to a chair?
Right.
while you pretend like she doesn't exist.
So gross.
Sickening.
But yeah, you see what the Japanese doll will kind of tie into a bit more Japanese lore. Like I said, in the history of this area, we get a lot of laborers that come from all these different countries. A lot of people think that it's believed that the Japanese laborers who came to the island in the late 1700s and 1800s, they might have also brought potentially some paranormal activity with them.
Ooh.
One of the most famous ghosts in Honolulu, the Faceless Woman, is believed to have Japanese origins. So we've covered yokais in the past. It might be a familiar name for some of you. We've also, I know Danny and I have come across them while playing Phasmophobia.
Really? They have yokais?
Yeah, they have a whole slew of different spirits and entities
Interesting.
in that game. Danny, pop quiz. What is the 3 pieces of evidence you need for a yokai in Phasmophobia?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll be honest
Oh,
with you.
boo. You suck.
Better
get back to
it's
playing.
Spirit box, ghost orbs, and dots projector.
Ah.
There'll be another pop quiz coming up in a second, so you better refresh your memory.
Is it Phasmophobia related?
Yes.
Okay.
He's going to boot up Phasmophobia on his computer real quick.
Yeah.
Do a quick investigation.
So as a refresher, yokai, they're spirits from Japanese folklore. They date way back. Sometimes they have animal-like features or they're considered shapeshifters. Other times they're humanoid or have no discernible shape.
So similar to what skinwalkers are to Native American.
Yes,
lore.
all very similar, yeah. But in this specific case, this yokai is believed to be a very specific type of yokai. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, but it's Naparabo, I believe it's pronounced.
Naparabo.
Yeah. This spirit is a humanoid, but it has no facial features.
So like Slender Man.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought too. Or it appears with a face at first. It might even be someone you're familiar with while you see it, but then all the facial features recede until it's just this
away.
weird
That's
blank,
creepy.
face of skin, essentially. And they're often seen in isolated areas. So when you come across them, there's most likely no one else around.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
That's terrifying enough.
One-on-one.
Yeah. And even scarier, when you see them, their back is turned to you. So you don't even know they're faceless most of the time until you're up close to them.
You're like, hey, how's it going? Oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly. Then they
slowly back away.
Yeah. Then they turn the head whip and it's right in your face.
Oh, man. One of the earliest encounters with the Faceless Woman was in May 1959. A local newspaper reported that a group of children at a school in Palolo told their parents about an old man and a faceless woman they had encountered. The parents called the police and the local newspapers, but school officials said that the children were exaggerating their stories and spreading rumors, which feels like it happens a lot to children whenever they see anything of the paranormal type.
It's easy to disregard kids because like, oh, you just have an active imagination.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, thinking about the UFO landing in Zimbabwe.
That's right.
For all those children. I mean, a ton of them saw it, but then they like chalked it up to, one of them made it up and then, it became real because it spread across all the other children. Their imagination ran wild and aliens didn't land in the schoolyard. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not so sure. I think if there's anybody that a paranormal entity would reveal themselves to, it would be children.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, they don't have that like bias that
True.
we do as adults,
That's a good point. I never thought about
to be like, oh, that's not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you know that the average person spends 26 years sleeping?
God,
on average.
I wish, because I just had that crazy bout of insomnia last night.
You did. The first thing you say to me, come in, you're like, hey, I might be a little sleepy today.
I'm zonked. I'm in the twilight zone right now, so I could use 26 years of sleep.
But did you know you really do? I didn't make that up.
That's awesome.
I spend 26 years of sleep.
Third of your life or something. Yeah.
So what's most important when you're sleeping, right? Your mattress. Do you have a good mattress?
God, it's probably like 9 years old right now. I might need a new one.
You might need a new one because Helix is here to sponsor the episode today. Mattresses are one of the hardest purchases for a number of reasons. Have you ever been to a mattress store, which I don't even know how those are still around anymore.
Right.
It seems like they're everywhere, but there's never anybody in them.
Right. I guess it's nice though, because I would want to try it out. But
well, that's a beauty with Helix. They do let you try out your mattress, make sure you really enjoy it. They give you 100 nights on it to decide whether or not you want to keep it, which is really cool. But they really customize their mattresses to fit your needs. And they have an online quiz that walks you through a bunch of different questions pertaining to how you sleep. Maybe you're a side sleeper, stomach sleeper, back sleeper. Maybe you like a cooler temperature versus a warmer temperature, or softer to a more firm surface. Helix helps you find the perfect mattress for you. So based on the quiz, I got matched with the Helix Midnight Luxe mattress, and this is a medium feel side sleeper support, which I will attest to that. I sleep on my side. If I sleep on my back, I snore and I get a pillow thrown in my face. So I have to stay on my side. And I got to say, I never wake up feeling sore. My neck's never sore. My back always feels great because it also has that enhanced lumbar support. Truly, truly comfortable. Helix has won all sorts of awards and mentions by CNET and Wired and all these other publications. It really is a fire mattress company. I mean, for example, the Helix Midnight Luxe has 5,695 reviews, and it's like a 4.9 rating.
That's really good.
So that's a lot of people that have reviewed this mattress. It is really that good. So instead of having to go to the mattress store and then trying to figure out how you're going to lug home a giant mattress tied to the top of your car or wait for a delivery to come, you can just order the Helix mattress right from their website. And we have a special offer for you as well to take advantage of. But once you get it, it comes in a nice, neat box. It's all rolled up. So you just take the box up to the bedroom, you open it up, you cut the plastic off of it, and then you just let it basically form itself. And within, I don't know, like 30 minutes or so, it's like completely ready to go. And it's so, so comfortable. Say goodbye to sleep paralysis demons. Only happy dreams on the Helix Midnight Luxe. Plus, Helix mattresses come with a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing options and flexible payment plans. So if you're looking for a new mattress, you know, it's kind of the end of the year, it's time to treat yourself. I got a special offer for you. Right now, Helix is running some sweet Cyber Week deals. I mean, it's really hard to beat this. 25% off plus a free sleep bundle. Because again, this video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. It is their best sale of the year and it's running now. So it's a perfect time to upgrade your mattress. You can get 25% off your purchase plus a free sleep bundle for a limited time. Check out the Helix site for more details. Only 4 days later, an editorial reported a recent sighting of the woman. She was seen at Waipahu Drive-In Theater in the neighborhood of Kaimuki. A teenage girl had been at the theater and headed into the restroom around midnight. She looked in the mirror to apply a fresh coat of lipstick. And in the reflection of the mirror, she saw a figure standing in the shadows behind her. The figure looked like the lower half of its body was invisible. She wore long hair roughly parted to the side, and as it turned to look at her, she noticed the figure had no face. As the girl turned away from the mirror to look at the figure, it was gone. The restroom door then slammed shut, and after a moment, the girl heard the click of the lock. Whew, that's scary to think about. The girl screamed and then fainted. When she was discovered on the bathroom floor, she was taken to the hospital. In another story, a young woman went into the drive-in restroom and saw another woman near the bathroom sink staring into the mirror. She was slowly combing her long hair that shrouded her face. As the young woman approached the bathroom sink, the faceless woman whipped her head around. That right there. Yeah. Thank you for the sound effects. It's, definitely like a whip going off.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That would be terrifying though. I can imagine it in like a horror movie.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Really see her face.
You expecting to see a face and then it whips around and it's just blank. The young woman was so frightened by the image of the bearskin face that she suffered a nervous breakdown and was later hospitalized, which don't really blame her there.
Brutal. Many years later, the paranormal author in Hawaii, his name is Lopaka Kapanui.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. He taught me a lot about hauntings in Hawaii and especially Honolulu. He supposedly once ran into a woman who claimed she knew who the faceless woman was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Lopaka has his own blog and YouTube channel. It's called Mysteries of Hawaii. If you want to go check it out, his content's great. The faceless woman was allegedly this woman's childhood best friend. This woman I'll just be referring to as this woman or woman because I don't know her name. As children, they both dreamed of one day getting married, and they fantasized about their wedding ceremonies and dresses. As they got a little older, this woman noticed her friend began to change, and their friendship eventually faded away, which I feel like happens to a lot of childhood friends. I don't know about you, but Nick Ricci.
They fade away?
Yeah. There are a lot that I still am super close with, like preschool friends that I still am close with, but I don't know. I feel like some childhood friends, you just kind of grow up and...
Yeah, I left all of them behind.
There's
They all left me.
I feel like there's no breaking point a lot of the times, though. It's kind of just a gradual fade.
Whereas Kendall, she still is good friends with the people she grew up in her neighborhood with. But again, I think it's different for everybody too, because depending on if you live in one place, it's a little bit easier to hold on to those friends longer, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
true.
Did you move around a lot as a kid?
No, so that's why. And I was in the same school for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So I still have friends from preschool, first grade.
Oh, that's cool.
kindergarten.
Yeah, I was always jealous of people like that because I moved 13 times and went to like 12 schools. And
Man, you had to learn how to make new friends.
Oh, I'm an
constantly.
expert on making friends.
I was so privileged with I was like, new year, new school year. I don't have to make new
Same
friends.
guys,
It's the same
yeah.
dudes. Yeah.
Same dude. That's cool though.
Yeah. So this childhood friend of this woman's, it just gradually faded away, and they eventually lost contact with each other. One day, many years later, the lady ran into her old friend, and she was surprised to see this. They had both grown up. This other woman now had 3 grown children with her, but unfortunately, she said she had married, but her husband had recently passed away. She did notice that her old friend was wearing this very expensive white yukata, which is basically a summer kimono. And when she asked her old friend why she was wearing the yukata, her friend responded, "Because I can and you can't." It's a kind of a very snobbish response. And as you can guess, this was the last time she ever spoke to her old childhood friend. Years later, through the grapevine, she found out that her old friend had spent all the money her husband had left her, and she was deeply in debt. And eventually, her 3 children wanted nothing to do with her, and they moved to the continental U.S. So they just abandoned her. And it's believed that she eventually passed away with no one at her side. But late one night, the woman and her husband woke up to the sound of wailing outside their window. Her husband went to the window and yelled, "Urusai," which means "shut up, you're noisy" in Japanese. The woman told her husband to just let it go, come back to bed. But when she looked out the window herself, she saw it was her old childhood friend wearing her white yukata. She was walking up and down the street, crying about her sad situation, wailing. Everyone she once loved was now gone, and she had, quote, lost face, as in she was embarrassed and humiliated for everything that had happened in her life, but she also literally lost her face. And it's believed that that woman now roams Honolulu and the surrounding areas without her face for eternity. The woman is still seen today around Wailea, and one of the most common places to spot her is in the Kahala Mall in the downstairs restroom. So if you want to go try and see her today, you check
Downstairs
out that
bathroom,
mall.
huh?
In the mall.
You want the intimate.
You'll probably see some
encounter.
other shit down there.
Yeah, I was going
too.
to say, I can only imagine. It kind of reminds me of La Llorona.
Yes,
Kind of a
the
similar,
wailing woman.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar story. It's a very sad and tragic human existence, and then
just in constant suffering. Yeah,
trapped here
very similar.
in the in-between.
That was a great episode. I like that one a lot.
Isn't it interesting though, like across all cultures, how similar these paranormal stories are?
Yeah.
Like they all have their own unique cultural details, but the meat of the stories is very much the same.
Yeah, someone just in permanent suffering the rest of their days. Yeah.
So make sure you live a happy life, Austin.
I will try to do
I don't
my
need
best.
you hanging around my house or my place of business forever.
Can you imagine my spirit just constantly wailing outside your home?
Just wailing at the coffee machine. We see Austin's just every time we get
my coffee?
coffee. Either that or the other place we'd see is the bathroom for sure. Those two go hand in
I
hand,
spend most of my time
It's coffee machine, bathroom, desk.
and
you
back.
have,
It's the trifecta. It's the
the
perfect triangle.
It's like the Bermuda Triangle right there.
Yeah. And in the middle of all that is Danny somewhere getting lost.
So across the city from Waialae is the district of Kalihi Palama. It was built up as an industrial working class neighborhood, and it stands as one of the most haunted regions in the city. Back in 1938, a young man named Aurelio Martinez had lived in tenement housing on Dacia Lane. The surrounding community tended to a small plot of land that surrounded the main housing building. The grounds were also the resting place of a man who had died almost 40 years earlier. The headstone read, William N. Inman, born in Northbridge, Massachusetts, December 31st, 1849, died in Honolulu on March 12, 1897, with a quote that says, I'm waiting for you, mother. One night, Aurelio was outdoors when he felt a force hug him violently around the torso. It held him tight for several seconds before letting go. He told others who lived in the building, and it turned out he wasn't the only one who experienced something supernatural at the property. His father, who was the one taking care of William's headstone, admitted he had seen the ghost every night around 11 or 12. Several neighbors also came forward claiming they'd seen the ghost. They described him as a very tall man dressed in black slacks and a coat. He had red hair and his legs were bent like he was weighed down by something on his back. Others had heard him howling in the night. Sometimes he was accompanied by another ghost who appeared as a Hawaiian woman. She was often seen wearing a dark-colored holoku, a traditional one-piece Hawaiian gown. The tall man told some of the tenants that he was William, the man buried on the property, and he was the old owner of the tenements, and he had no interest in harming the residents. But some of the tenants then wondered why he had terrorized Aurelio. It was later discovered that Aurelio had been sick when he encountered the paranormal force. Many believed his ghost was trying to warn people of an illness they had. Another tenant's son witnessed the entity standing by a mailbox out in the lane, and the next day his father became ill. It was then believed that what they were experiencing was a wraith. Whew. Like a ring wraith.
Yeah.
Not quite,
nice. I just watched
Searching for the Ring.
I watched Fellowship the last week. Man, that holds up. I haven't watched it in a few years, but holy crap, man. Extended edition all day. The music, everything. Not to get too off track, because I know we could talk about Lord of
we
the
can
Rings
take a minute to glorify only the greatest work of fantasy of all time.
It's so good. And those movies just, they do the books justice too.
They do.
I mean, what basically perfect adaptations. I know they're not, 1-to-1 ratio, but there's a lot
no
of
way
changes.
they could do that.
No,
There's
yeah,
just
it
too
wouldn't
much.
work. But man, they really made those movies work. But yeah, those wraiths were terrifying. I thought they depicted ring wraiths terrifying in those.
Which, I mean, clearly J.R.R. Tolkien took that idea from somewhere, right?
Right, exactly. He was very well researched in his in what he was creating. But the word wraith comes from, which, hey, Tolkien was a linguist,
Yeah,
so
right.
I wonder if he pulled from this. The word wraith comes from the Scottish word for ghost, apparition, or spirit. Wraiths are either undead creatures or ghost-like images of a person, and they're also common in Phasmophobia.
Not sponsored. Not sponsored by Phasmophobia, people.
All right, second pop quiz, Danny. What's the wraith evidence? Come on.
I know EMF level 5 is one of them.
Oh, nice.
I know Spirit Box is one of them.
Are you cheating over there? Did you look it up?
No, I can't remember the third one, but I know that in the game they're floating and they can't disturb salt. So that's how you know immediately.
Okay, he knows his wraith shit. That's for sure. It's Dots projectors. the last one.
Dots.
That was really good. I'll give you 80%.
Take it.
You
So
bet.
note to self, don't bring Danny on the paranormal investigation.
yeah. Don't you
He'll
dare.
get you like 2/3 of the way there.
To be fair, in the game you have a journal, so you don't have to remember it.
True. Yeah, you just reference the journal. But the real ones memorize it. Yeah. So sometimes wraiths are seen just before the death of the person that they're resembling, which is terrifying. It's believed they can recognize the spirits of those who are about to die and then seize their souls. So it's believed that these wraiths are more the embodiment of a dead person rather than the actual soul or spirit of the deceased.
Not to quote Lord of the Rings again, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, there
The
you
Kings
go.
of Men. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, Tolkien did his research.
Another haunted location in the Kalihi Palama neighborhood is the local water pumping station. By the late 1800s, they needed to supply fresh water to the growing population of Honolulu. At the time, this neighborhood dealt with water shortages because whalers, people who hunt whales, would come to shore when they needed food and water. So by 1901, they constructed the Kalihi pumping station. But during its construction, they ran into several problems. In July of 1900, they dug into the soil in front of the unfinished station, and the workmen discovered a group of skeletons while demoing a section of the rocky soil. That's never a good sign. As the dynamite went off, fragments of the skeletal remains shot across the property, and workers spent hours recovering thigh bones, femurs, tibias, and portions of skulls. There was also small chunks of worm-eaten wood from several decaying coffins. After the explosion, they recovered so many remains and pieces of skull that they had to begin shoveling them into the back of wagons, like debris. Soon after, they unearthed the perfectly preserved skeletal remains of a 6'3" Hawaiian male. As the old newspaper article describes, it was a quote, "a magnificent framework of bones." But the remains were so damaged when the skeleton was extracted that it had been broken into pieces. Another set of skeletons had been buried in an upright position with their feet downward. Scattered remnants of pottery were also found scattered among the bodies, but it's unclear what they had been used for. The water commissioner at the time said he expected to find dozens of more skeletons in the area beneath the scaffolding of the water pumping station. When they investigated the skeletons, researchers noticed that the skulls of many of the skeletons were actually in great condition, and many of the teeth were still intact, which was rare. Local Hawaiian natives soon claimed that the area was once used as a burial place as late as the 1850s. So just disturbing native burial grounds.
Yeah, in the most horrific way.
And not even like trying to be careful too. Just like, oops, all right, now let's detonate it.
And they even said, they were like, oh, we found a perfectly preserved 6'3" Hawaiian male
immediately sanction that off as like a historical
instead they try to
site.
Instead they try to extract it and they destroy the remains. It's like, God almighty.
It's someone's loved ones down there, man. What are you
seriously
doing?
So unfortunately, I mean, this is pretty common, especially back in the day, finding bones in burial grounds. I mean, this is like riddled in Hawaii's history.
Well, it's just such a small area of land. I mean,
exactly. And we know there's so much bloodshed and all the victims who had died from the disease that was brought over. I mean, there's countless bodies buried here. The skeletal remains of their ancestors, though, the native Hawaiian ancestors, it really has a critical role in their spirituality. And I found this fascinating. Hey, I think Tolkien will appreciate the linguini here. Yeah. But I think, I think Tolkien will appreciate the linguistics here. The Hawaiian word, which I believe is pronounced kanu, means to plant or to cultivate, but it also means to bury a deceased person. And figuratively, it means hereditary. So if you think of this, the multiple uses of that word says a lot about Hawaiian culture. Cultivate, bury, hereditary, right? Traditional native Hawaiians see the burial of remains as a form of spiritual cultivation. And once they bury their ancestors, their bones are believed to nourish the living. This is a way to strengthen their ancestral foundation and sustain their living families. Then it becomes the responsibility of the living to protect these grounds and pass on these traditions. And unfortunately, these burial grounds have just been disturbed countless times over the years. In Native Hawaiian beliefs, the worst thing that can happen to your bones would be to leave them out in the open, exposed to the sun, or if someone wanted to insult you, they would steal your bones, fashion them into arrowheads, and kill rats with them. It's believed that the disturbance of these burial grounds reduces the spiritual essence or mana provided by the ancestors. And just like many of the burial sites for indigenous people on the mainland of North America, the native people of Hawaii experienced similar problems throughout the years. Because when the Europeans arrived in Hawaii, they began looting, destroying these burial grounds, or just constructing buildings on top of them, as we see with this water pumping station. So this, along with natural erosion, led to the desecration and removal of thousands of ancestral Native Hawaiians. Many of these ancestral remains were shipped to universities and museums throughout the US and Europe. In the 1900s, this is crazy. It's estimated that the burial sites of more than 5,000 Hawaiian ancestors were desecrated, and many of the preserved remains were shipped to museums.
Oh my God.
But luckily nowadays, people are more sensitive to this. And, I guess the silver lining in all this, just last year, Yale's Peabody Museum They actually returned ancestral remains back to Hawaii, and it had been in their collection since the 1870s.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much good that does at this point.
I know, right? I mean, at least it's going back. That's the small silver lining here. But thanks to the 1990 Native American Graves Protection Act, Native American and Native Hawaiian tribes can actually reclaim stolen human remains and sacred objects and kind of return them to their burial place.
God, can't believe that happened.
I know, such a mess.
But in the centuries since the water pump station burial site was disturbed, many believe that paranormal entities have inhabited the station and the surrounding areas. Around 1906, many men in the area became trained engine operators at the pumping station. This opened up more work opportunities on the island for new workers. Only 1 year after the engineer apprenticeship program began, a 26-year-old man named George Haley took an interest in the program. He'd been working as a stevedore, working at a dock loading and unloading cargo from ships. He was married and he had 2 children, and he was looking for a higher paying job. So he applied for an apprenticeship at the pumping station. On his first training day, they showed George around the station and taught him how to do the oiling. He was eager to learn and do things himself. Other times he sat back and watched the more experienced engineers work. With everyone busy with their jobs, no one saw exactly what happened to George next. The man training him was up on the platform in the engine room, and it's believed George had been down in the boiler room getting his oil can. Apparently, when he reached over, his shirt sleeve caught on one of the oil cups moving up and down with a piston rod. When he realized he'd been caught in the machinery, he let out a scream. It was so loud that the trainer heard it through all the machinery noise while up on his platform above. As other engineers ran to help, the first one at the scene saw George's severed leg by the machine. The rest of George's body was mangled in the machinery and soon dropped down to the floor below. Only a year after the incident, in August 1907, workmen discovered more strange things at the pumping station. They had been excavating for the placement of an oil tank when they came across unusual stonework buried beneath the soil. It looked like an old foundation or possibly the stones of an old bathing pool. There were no historical records of a building or a burial ground existing here. It soon got the attention of the antiquarian, Thomas Thrum, and Dr. Nathaniel Emerson. They inspected the series of black rocks and saw that they were cemented together with an old Hawaiian form of cement called pololo clay. The researchers then excavated deeper into the stone and discovered more mason work within. They picked away at the structure until they found a blank rock wall about 4 feet high. As they dug through this wall, they discovered a series of symmetrically laid rocks on either side of the opening, but the area had been filled with large boulders. The researchers didn't understand what they were looking at, but the appearance of the room made one of them think it might have been a tomb. The researchers looked into a legend of an old Molokai chief. His son buried his remains in a great hole, and his body was covered deep with rock, and from the outside, the tomb was sealed shut. A week after the excavation, researchers abandoned the area and the tomb was left exposed. Someone wrote to the local newspaper saying that there was potentially another covering of stone beneath the one they had just been excavated. When they asked a head engineer what was going to be done with the area, he said they planned on placing an oil tank in the hole and covering it up. It's unknown exactly what happened to the area after this, but years later, some suspect the odd stones were just a strange natural geological phenomenon. But whatever, or whoever created it, left behind smooth exterior walls held together by carefully mixed natural cement. And the seal has lasted decades or possibly even centuries. Today, the original pumping station has since been replaced with a newer building. This location and the old water pump station are now the sites of the Fred Ort Museum. The building is currently closed for renovations and tours have been suspended until further notice. But to this day, many believe the spirits of the ancient burial grounds and tombs continue to haunt the area. But many of Honolulu's haunted stories tie back to the island's history. Some of these spirits that have been around for centuries are known as the Night Marchers. Ricky, a Honolulu local, claims he once caught a glimpse of the Night Marchers on July 5th, 1995. He was with his then-girlfriend Jennifer visiting their friend Richard and his son Ryan. They were out camping at Mokulea Beach, and they got there around 10 or 11 p.m. A flash of light caught their attention in the distance, and it looked like a line of fire ants marching down the mountain by Dillingham Airfield. Ricky thought people were out hunting, but then he noticed that they were carrying strange torches, and it looked like an endless line of fireballs disappearing off of the mountain ridge. But he soon realized that these weren't hunters at all, and he remembered hearing the legend of the Night Marchers as a kid at the YMCA Camp Erdman. One of his counselors always warned the campers about Night Marchers in the exact spot where he saw them. Luckily, Ricky and his friends survived to tell the tale, but from then on, he never returned to Mokulea.
So these night marchers are pretty well known by locals, but they're not well known by tourists. The oral and written histories of these spirits have survived for countless years. We actually don't know really when they originated. And I don't want to butcher their Hawaiian name. I think it's pronounced Oeo. So I'll just be calling them by their English name, which they're called night marchers, or sometimes they're called spirit ranks. They're always seen in great numbers, and they've been described as, quote, a group of warriors marching in death in a haunted procession. It's believed they march on the last 4 Hawaiian moon phases. They sometimes announce themselves with loud noises like blowing a conch shell, pounding drums, or marching their feet. And a line of torches can usually be seen traveling along a path, and it's usually in the wilderness. Witnesses have also felt the earth shake while smelling sulfur before these night marchers appear. Others have seen a strange column of mist traveling across the island. But if the night marchers ever come toward you, you're advised to run. That's first, if you can run. But if it's too late to run, they say you should lay down prone, cover your head, and shut your eyes. Do not look at them. Then you're supposed to chant your ancestors' names and pray that one of your ancestors walks among the dead that is marching toward you. So seems like tourists would be screwed in these situations.
They'd be like, I want to get a picture.
Yeah.
Let me get closer.
Right.
I want to take a picture of the ghost.
They would have no idea what's going on.
My God.
So yeah, if you have some ties in your ancestors to these night marchers, maybe someone can claim you among their ranks. But if not, really, sometimes they're ordered to spear you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Your best chance at surviving, as they say, according to mysteriesofhawaii.com, is to strip naked, lie flat on your back, try to convince the marchers that you're a bit unhinged. And if you can act wild and strange enough, they might just pity you and move on. So just act like you're
out of your damn mind.
Out of your gourd. Yeah. They might just be like, hey, this guy's going through enough. We're going to move on. There's also,
this guy's already in hell.
Yeah, right.
Leave him.
Exactly. There's also a rumor that you can also rub urine on yourself or soil your own pants, and they'll just find you repulsive enough that they'll just be like, look, I don't even want to touch this guy. He smells like garbage. But in general, the night marchers, they're not meant to terrorize you. Their goal really is just to protect their most sacred, high-ranking chiefs. And that's the reason they travel at night, is to generally avoid people. So you most likely won't come across them. If you do, just pee your pants and you'll be good.
Just shit your pants and then strip naked and roll around wailing.
And you're good. You're good.
And you're good to go.
This episode is brought to you by Uncommon Goods. And you know what? It's officially time to kickstart your holiday shopping. If you haven't gotten around to it, the clock is ticking. Good thing is there's no cause for panic because Uncommon Goods has got your back. I've been looking at some stuff. I've been trying to get my dad some gift ideas. They have this cool hot sauce making kit, and they have a whiskey making kit that I wanted to get him. So I'm trying to decide, maybe I should just get them both. He's a Texas man, so what's better than hot sauce and whiskey, am I right? But the good thing is, you know, if you don't find a gift for your dad, you can find one for your mom, your cousin, your brother, your sister, whoever. They have a slew of gifts. And the cool thing is that when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses, which I like. And it's also cool because these products are made in small batches, so they feel personalized. They're super high quality. A lot of them are very unique. So you can really personalize your gifts. They're meaningful. They're kind of out of the ordinary gifts, and they're usually handmade or made in the US, which is cool. From art to jewelry to kitchen supplies, home and bar, Uncommon Goods has got your back. They got something for everyone. And it's not just the same lackluster gifts that you find anywhere else. Another great thing about Uncommon Goods is that they give $1 back to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $2.5 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/lightsout. That's uncommongoods.com/lightsout for 15% off. Do not miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
But that leads us to my favorite story for today, the Honolulu Police Department. Gotta love it. On the other hand, some spirits love coming in contact with people across the island of Oahu, especially in the Honolulu Police Headquarters, which opened in 1992. Let's hear from a retired officer talking a little bit about the police headquarters history.
My name is Eddie Kroom. I am a retired HPD officer, and one of the pleasures that I've had over my career with HPD is to put together the Honolulu Police Department Law Enforcement Museum. One thing I learned about the museum as soon as we started to put everything together to bring things in here, that there was something a little eerie about the museum. There were times when I was in here when you could always feel that you weren't alone. You get that shadow moving in the corner of your eye. So I did a little bit of research to determine if there was a basis for something paranormal going on in the museum. What I found was that the Honolulu Police Department, the building, is built on the site of the Honolulu Rapid Transit Bus Barn. In the 1800s, the trolley cars would come into the bus barn in the evening. They would be serviced, turned around on a big trolley that would turn them around, and then they would go back out the next day. What I discovered was one day, two workmen who were working in the mechanism, greasing the mechanism, were not aware that one car was still out. When that car came in, they turned it, the workmen were crushed. And the Honolulu Police Department is built on that site. Actually, when the department was first opened, we had a few incidents that occurred at the photo lab, which is the exact site. And eventually they moved throughout the building and, of course, the museum.
Wow.
Is that wild?
That is wild.
Yeah. Tragic way to die, too. That was,
Crushed by a trolley car, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. Poor guys.
I mean, there's so many haunted stories coming out of the Honolulu Police Department buildings and surrounding stations that they decided to make their own YouTube series on it. And they haven't posted for a while. At least
I think it's been like 5 years since their
years
last
plus.
post. Yeah.
But they have some really, really good videos.
Yeah, I love them.
Amazing. Let's take a look at one of the videos here. Here's the intro to it. Making Honolulu the safe place to live, work, and play.
Now, just about everyone in the department has walked through Kekula Makai at one point or another. But how many of you knew the academy was full of chicken skin stories? In fact, I even cut my hair just so you could see my chicken skin.
Okay. Honolulu Police Department ghost stories.
Love it.
Ghosts, obake, makaala, night marchers. Call them whatever you want. But over the years, the admin building has been the scene of many eerie sightings. One of the earliest involved now retired officer Alika Deshe, who was assigned to the training division. Some 15 years ago, Alika walked into the darkened Makai video studio, but as he reached for a light switch, he immediately felt a presence in the room.
This is a dramatization. I thought this was real.
Alika noticed a dark, shadowy figure seated on a chair. The figure then stood up and walked directly into the wall, where it disappeared. The encounter Officer Deshe had in our previous story wasn't his first nor his last ghostly experience.
Ooh, wow, oh, man.
I'm spooked.
The production on that is amazing.
Love it. The slow zoom into the eyes and it just sits there for a moment. Love it.
We've got some more to show you from this channel because it's that good. I mean, for real though, how many police department YouTube channels are covering the paranormal?
I don't think I've ever heard of
I've never
any
even
of them.
seen that. That's what caught my eye about this was like, what? They have paranormal videos all over their...
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great way to just for community building and stuff like that, just to, you know, get police officers' faces out there in kind of a maybe lighter context.
Yeah.
Than
Yeah.
how
A little
often,
less serious than all the crazy crime they deal with.
So I'm all for it. But police officers and staff have witnessed a slew of things. They've witnessed carts moving on their own, shadow figures appearing, disappearing, disembodied footsteps, demonic laughter in empty rooms, and figures dressed in police uniforms that vanish into thin air. One night, over a decade ago, an old security guard apparently passed away while on duty, and it's believed his spirit still roams the police department campus. Here is another one of the Honolulu PD beautiful dramatizations of the security guard spirit.
One night, while doing routine checks, a new security guard noticed an old man in a similar uniform smoking a cigar near the gym.
Whoa!
The security guard
He's
called
like that
to
way.
see who the man was. But when he turned the corner by the gym,
The robotic
the old man
movement.
was gone except for the faint smell of cigar smoke. Even today, many of the training staff report hearing someone door checking their offices, much like a security guard would. But when they go to see who it is,
No one was there. Both in this life and the next, the old man continued to do his job.
there may be something even scarier lurking in the shadows of Kekula Makai, but we may never know for sure.
Wow.
Music is great.
Yeah.
Ding, dong, ding.
Man,
Incredible.
we need to get Denver PD to do some of
Well,
this
I was
type of
thinking-
content.
We should do an episode just on police encounters with the paranormal.
Ooh, yeah.
Because there is a lot. And
Yeah.
I mean, most police departments don't take the time to do an excellent production like that
True.
to like dramatize it and
True,
show you what they
yeah.
actually were doing. But
Yeah.
but there is lots of crazy stories of I mean, you could imagine like being a police officer going to some places that are riddled with paranormal activity.
Yeah, that was like what was the last poltergeist one that
Oh,
we
yeah.
covered on Halloween?
Right.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like all the police officers
They were
saw a
seeing
ton
all
of
that crazy
stuff.
shit
Yeah.
going on at that house.
And they were even going against their chief,
right.
who was saying it was all a hoax, and they were like, "No, that was real."
Crazy, man. In the police museum on the first floor, people have witnessed invisible entities touching people and mannequins dressed in police uniforms moving their arms and blinking. Many believe that since old historic objects are kept in the museum, that it draws the spirits in, which honestly makes a lot of sense. The nearby training academy opened in 1988, and one night a security guard named Tony heard a strange clanging noises that night that riled up the canine units. When Tony went to check out the noise, he noticed that all the shutters on the building were opening and closing on their own. When he got closer, the shutters suddenly stopped. He went and searched the entire building but couldn't find anyone. Here's a few more experience Tony had while working security at the police department. And this clip is narrated by a retired reserve officer, Comer Stamps Jr.
This time, Tony was sitting in the breezeway when he heard what sounded like a car horn tooting at the back corner of
Tooting.
the property. So, of course, he went to check it out.
Says, what the hell?
At first, he thought it was a car alarm coming from the old garbage
shit.
incinerator
There's
plant
no one there.
behind the academy. But when
Oh,
he
even
passed by
better,
the auto
even
repair
better.
garage, he noticed that the sound was a lot closer, coming from somewhere on the track. As he moved closer to where the sound was coming from, he noticed a little kid sitting on one of the motorcycles, pressing the horn button. Not knowing who the kid was, he walked up to him and said,
Hey, don't do that.
The kid stopped what he was doing, looked up, turned his head towards Tony, and just stared at him with a blank expression. But then Tony tried to move a step closer. The kid just vanished right before his eyes. But wait, Tony's story doesn't end there. A couple of nights later, Tony was doing his regular routine, closing the front gate, making sure it was secured, and doing his checks around the property. Everything seemed normal, and of course, he was the only one at the academy, so he decided to sit down in the breezeway to pass the time. But as he stared out into the parking lot, he noticed an old lady dressed in
Oh
white
my God.
walking towards him.
Jesus.
First, he thought the lady may have been lost or needed help. So Tony waved at her to get her attention. But she
Hey,
didn't
come on,
respond
have a
and kept
seat.
walking toward him. The funny thing crossed his mind.
Is that my
He
wife?
didn't hear the gate open. So how did she get in? As Tony stood up to ask the old lady, she disappeared.
No.
Tony thought, oh no, not again. But this time, he decided he better call his supervisor about it. So he turned, and guess who's standing there? Yep, the lady in white. And guess what?
Oh, shit.
Oh, man.
She starts slowly walking towards him, eyes fixed and staring at him. By now, Tony is freaking out. He's so scared. He can't move. He's frozen. She's so close to him that he notices that her face looks angry. He tries to yell or scream. Nothing comes out. Then whoosh, she disappears again. Tony let out a sigh of relief and slowly looked around. But this time, no one was there. He sat back down to gather his thoughts. He couldn't believe that the ghost appeared twice and was coming after him. Tony was about to stand up and call his supervisor when guess who decides to show up?
No way.
Yep. The lady was back, and this time she was sitting right across from him. This was too much for Tony to handle. He sprang up and booked it the heck out of there. See? Tony should have taken my advice the first time. And none of this would have happened. But I know what you're thinking. I'm just some guy repeating to you the stories that he's heard. I get that. But let me tell you something. These things really happened to Tony. I believe him and all the other officers who had similar experiences at the training academy.
I got chills.
Poor Tony, man.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did a random drug test on him the next day after he said he had 3 encounters. Like, whew, that is scary stuff, man. Whew. I love it, though. Across town in the Kapolei Station, about a 20-mile drive west of Honolulu city center, officers have witnessed even more paranormal activity. Here's an eyewitness account from an officer who claimed that they saw a ghost.
I was sitting my rotationary shift at the front of the station in the security post. It was about, I say 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30 in the morning. And another officer was up there with me. And I was just organizing paperwork, just general things at the time. We were just making small talk, and I heard this strange noise coming from the bathrooms. And what it kind of sounded like was a chirping sound, which caught my attention because I thought it was a bird stuck in our bathroom. When I turned to look, what I saw was a male figure, kind of heavy set, walk right past my view, and the head didn't turn, didn't look at me, stared straight ahead as if though it was following a certain path, and not even giving me the chance to address it and say, "Can I help you, sir? Who are you and why are you coming through that door?" And he kept walking until he got to the benches area and disappeared right into the wall. That is where everything just turned. It was almost like stepping into the Twilight Zone. I turned back, I looked at Mark, and I asked him, "Did you just see that? That guy just went through the daggone wall." And he said, "Of course I did." And he quickly exited the security post. At the time, there was no glass up there. It was very open. So I jumped over the counter and I went to chase this figure down because where this person or this thing came from is strictly off limits to the public. Only the officers are allowed back there. I ran out through the front glass doors by the flagpole looking for this person, whoever I saw, walk through that wall. I really wanted to know, exactly what the heck is going on here. Who is that? And can I see them outside, continue walking, and maybe I can stop them or what have you, follow them? But it was there.
Can't find.
And at that point, that's when I realized maybe I was just chasing a ghost.
Oh, man. Then he had to spend the rest of the night at the post by himself.
Right.
His
after
buddy
seeing a
bounced.
ghost. I would be,
Later in the night,
oh
when
man,
was
I would be
leaving
on
my
edge.
shifts. I went downstairs and I described everything that happened to the on-duty lieutenant. And they told me it was Officer Brown that had passed away at the Kapolei security post a few years before I was assigned there. He apparently passed away from a massive heart attack. Now, I've never met this person. I've never seen them. So there's no way I had a background as to exactly who this person was, but they were convinced that is who I saw.
Since the detective's original sighting, the ghost Officer Brown has never been seen again.
Isn't that crazy? What's fascinating to me about that last one is that he went to his lieutenant and was like, yo, I just saw a ghost. And the lieutenant was like, yeah, you did. Like, doesn't even question him at all. He's just
and he knows exactly who it is.
Yeah.
So
like
it makes you think he's seen it too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or other reports have come in.
Yep. But yeah.
Wow. That's spooky, man.
Yeah. And
think it's a bunch of made up malarkey? Or you think we got a real haunting on our hands here?
I mean, you know me. I think we've talked about this before, that tragedy, desecrating burial sites, things like that, I think set the stage for a haunting. You know, I'm more on the skeptical side of things, but with the sheer amount of hauntings that are in Honolulu, I'm a little skeptical. It's like every single one. I think that's maybe just a little more, people might be more superstitious there or something like that. That might be at play, but it does have the foundation of a place to be haunted. What do you think?
I believe all of it.
Yeah. Nice.
It's all haunted, man.
I don't follow you for that.
I mean, especially this last one too. I do think there's something to the fact that people haunt. You know, doesn't just because you're haunting some place after you die doesn't mean that it's you're there for nefarious reasons, right? Like you're just part of your essence, your soul, or something is sort of just existing there, and it would make sense for an officer to essentially haunt their place of work. I mean, they spend so much time there, and then to die there in a tragic way like that, whether it's, you know, having your life taken from you or just dying of natural causes like a heart attack. I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
I don't understand it fully. I don't know that we'll ever understand why it happens, but it seems to happen in most cases where people are heavily tied to the location that some sort of haunting occurs. And for me, I always go back to the theory of it's residual. It's a residual haunting. So it's not that person died and didn't cross over to the other side, but in fact that there's this energy that manifests and, you know, can manifest into potentially, you know, an apparition of their human form at times, and that it's like almost like if you think of a replay happening, you know what I mean, of their last moments on earth, and that energy, that replay is just on repeat, and it happens from time to time for whatever reason.
That reminds me of one of my favorite theories of the sleep paralysis demon is it's yourself just watching your life back, you know, like a flashback upon death, that you're just recapping that entity that there is actually you disembodied from yourself and just watching your entire life pass by.
Yeah.
I like theories like that. It's not as written in the sand, like we know exactly what this is. I like theories that are a bit more abstract or
I think it's all very abstract. I don't think any of it's like clear cut what's going on.
I think with the lore, at least, you know, where it's like definitions of a yokai is like we have the legends and folklore of that. That's where I'm a little bit less. I love the stories, and I think culturally we can learn a lot from those stories, but I'm less likely to believe that a yokai actually exists.
Mm-hmm.
But the more, I don't know, if you get more abstract, like what you think, I'm more on board with that. It's residual energies that we don't
folklore
really,
is like the simple explanation.
Yeah,
that
boiled down.
We all can, and obviously there's some exaggeration put into those stories to make them more spooky and make them feel more like a scary story versus like, here's what actually happened and what's really going on.
Yeah. But, and those concrete stories, I think they're easier to digest and understand a bit more than just something that's mind-boggling.
Right. But I do really believe that while you're here in this physical plane and on this, you know, we're in this physical existence, that you can be tied to a location, place, thing, even an object in some way, shape, or form, that some, you know, like if you think about what's the most powerful emotion or what's the most powerful thing in the universe, and I would argue it's love, right?
Right.
You know, love is such a powerful thing. And if there's something that you truly love during your physical stay, is there some sort of ripple effect that happens when you pass, and obviously the physical things of this reality don't go with you into wherever we go. And so is it possible that part of your physical essence, being, soul, whatever you want to call it, gets left behind or stays attached to whatever you may love in this life? And for a lot of people, it's the people they leave behind, right? And that's why their loved ones oftentimes experience like the ancestors things makes a lot of sense to me, because it's like it would make sense that, I mean, they're still here in some shape or form, but it's always in a very, it's not very dynamic. It's a very static representation of who they are. The night marchers, they're seen kind of the same way. And so it's almost like this replay that happens of this residual energy or form that's left over after they've passed that, if we're lucky to witness it, then, that's great. But a lot of us don't, because I don't think it reveals itself to you just out of pure, want, right? It's just something that happens, and maybe it happens for a reason. It might go even deeper than that. But I think it makes a lot of sense for these places, especially burial grounds, make a lot of sense. I mean, for hauntings to take place in those locations, that it's not necessarily like that person didn't cross over to the other side and they're still here, trapped here on this earth, and they know everything that's going on and they're conscious still and they're observing everything that's happening, but rather it's this leftover part of that person that's still here, whatever it may be, that we're witnessing from time to time. And it makes sense why people witness, have strange paranormal activity happen to them that they attribute to a loved one that's passed. And I think mediums really helped reinforce my belief in this, because they're clearly communicating with something, and I don't know if it's actually they're like, what are they communicating with, and what is that exactly? Is it actually the deceased person communicating to them from wherever they are now, or is it some imprint of that person that is being communicated with based on what they left behind? You know what I mean? Like in this in between completely moving on to whatever's next. And again, it all comes back to belief systems. But
yeah, and I think that's where you and I differ, because funny enough, you bring up mediums, that's where actually I draw the line on the supernatural, where I think a lot of mediums, I think they're exploiting people going through immense suffering.
Sure.
And people reach out to, I don't know, when you're in grief, you kind of you want answers, because it's hard to grasp when people are gone. And I think mediums play on that. And that's where I kind of draw the line, where I'm like, you're kind of just full of it. I don't appreciate that. I appreciate the theories that you present.
So you don't believe in mediums at all? Or you just haven't met one or seen one that you're convinced by being legit?
I think the nature of mediums is what turns me off. What you're doing is like gross to me. So yeah, I think So
you don't think there is a gift there?
There might
some
be.
People?
I think if you're charging for that, I think it's unethical.
Okay, that's fair.
But if you're just a medium and you have these insane talents and you do it strictly for free to help people in their grieving process, I mean, more power to you. I don't have a name. I can't list anyone who actually does that.
You should check out Tyler Henry.
Does he profit off of his?
Yeah, he definitely profits off of it, but it's like, I think you could say anybody out there. I mean, look at the pastors at your church. You know what I mean? Like there's everybody's got to make money in this world. And I think it's how they make that money and what they do with it says a lot as well. But I think if you have a gift like that, like obviously you have to survive. And like he's one of the mediums out there that I feel very confident saying I think he's legit. I think he does have a gift, and from everything that I've seen and just the way that he carries himself, it's in a very authentic, genuine way. And I don't think he's somebody out there. He's not a charlatan in my eyes. Like he's somebody who truly has this unique gift to pull things from somewhere and give people answers that they're looking for. And he has no prior knowledge of these people prior to meeting them and stuff. It's very interesting, and he might change. I do agree. There's a lot of mediums I'm like, yeah, like you're reaching for sure.
Yeah.
And what's your real intentions here? Because they're also blasting you like, join this, join that, pay me for these classes, this, that. And there's definitely a lot of those out there. But I do feel that there are a few people out there that do carry this unique gift and can communicate with whatever it is. And that's the thing, is I don't think they even know what it is. They don't have the answers as well. They're just getting information from somewhere, and whatever it is, I mean, that's the golden question that all of us want to know. But for me, it all kind of ties back together, and it makes a lot of sense. And so I really resonate with the imprint haunting, because I feel like it's not necessarily, most of the time, it's not a conscious ghost that you're dealing with, but you're dealing with the remnants of that person's spirit on this planet. And that's what you're seeing manifesting into these apparitions, into these ghostly figures. And there's a reason why they don't interact with you, right? Like, people encounter them, but the minute you try to interact with them or talk to them or like try to get information from them, they disappear. And that's the end of it. It's like almost like the end of recording, right? It's like it's on a loop, and then it just stops.
Yeah, it seemed with like the little girl where she just wants a mother figure and someone to play with her. She's
so
just
it's like when that girl died, what you're getting is the replay of those last moments of her life and the feelings that she harbored in her heart as she passed. And part of that, for whatever reason, I can't explain it, is left behind in some way, shape, or form that's able to manifest itself on an ongoing basis, and people run into it. And I wonder if those people that do run into it are connecting with it in some way, that there's a reason that they're almost like having this experience with these different spirits, rather than, some people don't. Yeah. And I feel like I'm one of those people. I've never had an experience with a spirit or ghost or anything like that. I want to, and I yearn for it. I'm like, I'm never going to be a 100% believer until I have my own experience. But part of me is like, I probably won't, because I'm like so, adamant about having this experience with them, and that they're like, for some reason, I'm not able to ever have that. But I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll travel the world until I have a ghostly encounter, but I may never have one, because maybe I don't know. There's something about who I am and how I connect with this world that it just won't ever happen for me. But that's just my theory.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one area we can agree on. We both want to have those experiences. I would love to have a ghost experience. I mean, that would be the beginning of my, I'm trying to formulate words here. I'm sorry.
That would convince you?
I don't know even if that would convince me, but it would start the
What if you were
journey.
with people who also saw it with you? So that you weren't just seeing shit, but other people were seeing the same things.
I don't know. The mind's a powerful place, as they say.
So you really think the mind can do some crazy stuff?
Yes. I mean, I swear I've seen the images of like faces and stuff out of the corner of my eye. I'd be like, wow, that looked like a geisha woman with like with bags under her eyes. And like, I have a detailed vision of a face, but I know I'm like, that's just me being creative. That's just kind of my mind.
Or are you just smoking too much weed?
Yeah. That's what weed does to me. I see geisha women everywhere.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I don't get that at all either. I don't ever have my mind doesn't play tricks on me in that way of like, of like creating images that aren't really there or anything like that. Like, I live in a very like plain world, I guess. It's all very plain to me. So I'm like, it will really stick out to me if something
you saw something for real,
dramatic and paranormal happens to me.
Yeah, I don't know, knowing myself, I would just write it off as that was just a trick of the mind.
Interesting. What about you, Danny? What's your thoughts on these Honolulu hauntings? Are you with Austin here and think you're pretty skeptical about all of it?
I'm actually kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm kind of somewhere in the
middle. Wow, that's good to hear.
Especially on the medium take. As far as
what's your take on mediums?
As far as mediums go, I don't necessarily believe them, but in defense of you, if someone does have like a special skill that not many other people can do, of course make money off of it. You need money to survive. You need to make a living. You have to do this. I think someone that maybe has like has a great gift or skill that wants to do these things for free is great in like theory and morality,
right?
But it's unrealistic in survivability.
Exactly. It's just not the way the world works.
Yeah, it's just not the way the world works.
If we all could just use our gifts and creativity for free, well, fuck yeah, we'd all do it, right?
Yeah. But this is different because it's always contacting the deceased. And huge.
It's a bold and
that's why I don't know, I just feel gross if you're gonna be able to claim to do that. It just makes me feel a little disgusted.
And I understand that. And my argument to that would be, how do you feel about pastors and priests and people of God who claim to speak to God and get messages from him and preach to a bunch of people on how they should live their lives? And
I'm not on board with those people
so
either.
I feel icky about that too.
If you claim that you can speak to God,
like God told me that you need to buy me a $20 million jet so I can fly around the world and preach to the masses.
I know exactly who you're talking about too. Yeah, no, those people are garbage. If you have a direct line
to the divine,
actually, I take this back. If you have a direct line to God, keep it to yourself. Because that is a very personal line to have. It's when you start trying to monopolize on that line and trying to tell other people that you can access that line for them, I think that's where I get totally turned off by it. But if you truly believe you have a direct line to something out there, that should be kept sacred. Keep that to yourself. That is a very strong connection to have.
All right, I can appreciate that. I think I got to get a good medium on the show, and try to make some connections there. Because, I mean, I was a big skeptic when it comes to mediums for a long time as well. And I mean, I've met a self-proclaimed medium before on the show here, and a lot of you really weren't convinced by her, and I definitely had my feelings too after talking with her. I think she said a lot of good things, but I think she didn't really confirm to me her gift. But if someone out there knows of a good medium that isn't like Tyler Henry, he's doing big A-list celebrities and stuff, like he's very booked, which we actually had somebody who was friends with his mother reach out to us and try to connect us, but I know he's a busy guy. I mean, that would be the dream. That'd be like the dream, because I do think he has a gift, and I don't think he's a charlatan. I think he's really, just based on everything I've seen, I'm like, wow, there's no way he would have known these things. And these people would not have jeopardized their own credibility to lie in order to just help him make a show or something. There's a great Netflix special that Tyler Henry has I recommend watching. But if there's anybody out there that knows of a medium, maybe a YouTube medium or something like that, that
could convince
these guys. I need Tyler Henry level skill when it comes to being a medium. Let us know, because I would love to maybe bring one on again with these guys and really have another conversation. Also see what comes through, because you might be surprised.
I'm open to it.
So that'd be really interesting. But also let us know your thoughts on these haunted spots in Honolulu, because for me, it all checks out for the most part for me. I think there's a lot of history here that lends to credible ghost activity and hauntings, and it really, really makes sense when you look at it. And also, at least through my perspective and my theory, it all kind of checks out. Do I think some of it's exaggerated to kind of play up the, kind of the paranormal, sort of fun
stories?
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of it for sure. They spend a lot of time and effort on those videos to bring you the spooky quality content there. So
0 out of 10. How convinced are you of
those videos really didn't do it justice. But it's all fun at the end of the day. So let us know your thoughts on this episode. It was a lot of fun doing a paranormal episode once in a while. It's nice to kind of get back to the roots here.
It feels like return to form, right?
It does. But that is going to be it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. And, we just want to say we're thankful for all of you out there who have been joining the Lights Out crew, and, new or old subscribers. We appreciate every single one of you. Seriously, it's made this so much fun. And, we're kind of coming to the end of 2023, and we've got quite a few good episodes to come here before the end of the year. But hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you guys next week. And until then, lights out, everybody.